printers need to talk to creatives and marketers to build better business opportunities? That's the question I'll be putting to Charlotte Graham-Cumming, Director of Ice Blue Sky. In her own words, the company acts as a conduit between printers and their customers, so she should be well placed to give us some valuable insights. First up, can you elaborate a little bit about Ice Blue Sky and its relationship with the print community?
Well, obviously, since we started as a business in 2007, we've worked with printers fairly consistently throughout that period in a number of different areas. So packaging, print, a wide format print, small print, all sorts of things, digital, litho. But it was always a fairly, supplier-customer type relationship. And actually, we then started working with Konica Minolta, and through that, I learned a huge amount about what's out there in the print sector, and I've actually started to use that in our business. And one of the things that I've picked up on over this last sort of 18 months is that there's a huge amount of potential in the print sector that the creative sector can take advantage of.
Yeah. When it comes to maximising print's potential, talking to creators and better engaging with them is a key aspect, and it's why we launched the Think Bigger report this year. Now, you have done a couple of talks at print trade events in 2014. Is there a significance to that timing?
Definitely, because I think there's been huge steps in print in terms of managing things like variable data, web to print, self-service, all of those things, which as an agency make our lives so much easier. Data's a big frustration to us as it is to everybody else, and the fact that you can hand that over to somebody and they not only handle it but they actually add value to the process, that's a massive plus for us. And also being able to suggest ideas as they come out, as digital print has really grown, got better in quality, has a lot more options in terms of how you can use it. And in terms of personalisation, automation, personalised landing pages, linking that in with personalised mail, all those things that we've all previously done, but very manually. And one thing I've seen is that being able to automate a lot of that in conjunction with your print partner just makes life so much easier.
So crucially then, what do printers need to do to better engage with creatives, especially those that perhaps they don't already have a relationship with?
I think they've just got to be brave and go out there and be proactive. And not every agency, as in with anyone that you know in real life, is going to be open to the approach, but then you just move on and you go to the ones that are. But the more innovative you can appear and the more value add, and if you take a collaborative approach as opposed to trying to sell, this is my latest gadget, but if you go to the agency and say, what campaigns are you working on? Is there anywhere where you're lacking ideas? Did you know that printers can now handle data and web to print, and they can set up self-service for your clients if you're producing lots of business collateral on a repetitive basis? And really talking their language. And this is one big thing that I've noticed over the last couple of years, is that the language is very different. For example, cross-media, which is an incredibly popular term in the print sector.
Nobody knows.
I didn't even know what that meant.
Yeah.
We call it integrated marketing. It's exactly the same thing, but it's small things like that, and taking the time to learn how creative agencies behave as a business and where their challenges are. It's like good marketing, and that's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about this, is because it is just filling in the gaps for the agencies and making them aware that you're there, you can add value in all sorts of ways.
I presume then that the type of engagement printers have with the creators needs to change depending on what type of creative that is.
Exactly, it's like good marketing, know your audience. So if you're talking to a creative agency, for example, I've had some printers come up to me and all they want to know is about my client base instead of wanting to know about me. And if you're going to engage with an agency, you need to know what their gaps are. Are they struggling with data? Are they struggling with creative ideas when it comes to print? Do they even do print? Obviously is an important qualification, and showing them the value of that personalisation and that combination of print and digital. And then when you perhaps talk to a smaller business, budget is going to be more of a constraint for them, but also so is resource. Perhaps they do want to do more marketing, but they don't feel they can afford it, and they don't, because it's manual. Whereas If the printer goes in and offers them some automated solutions, that's a bonus for them. And for big brands, I think, as well as the creative ideas, then potentially some of the automation, some of the web to print, self-service, all of those things.
So do you think printers are actually sending the right level of people, the right type of person to talk to the creatives?
Well, I think they have to understand who they're talking to and what the drivers are of the person that they're talking to. They don't want to pigeonhole themselves necessarily into production, because then it does become a cost conversation. And what you want to do is to steer it towards a value conversation.
Yeah.
So that has to then tap into, for an agency our size, for example, it would be myself or one of the other directors. I've got some great ideas. We've got some great ways to help increase responses in campaigns, to have some really creative ways of engaging with customers.
Yeah.
Those are the sorts of things that I'm interested in. A creative director, perhaps of a larger company or agency, is going to be interested in those sorts of conversations. Marketing, customer service, it's really about elevating yourself out of that price-conscious conversation.
Yeah. You produce some great blogs, and in one of them you were talking about thought leadership and the fact that it's a term that's bandied about quite readily and perhaps incorrectly. How would you define that, and how do you apply that to this engagement conundrum?
Thought leadership is something that I actually hate using the term because it is so overused, and it's about adding value to your audience. And it's not about, for example, a lot of people share news items online and think that's thought leadership. Well, it's not. It's regurgitating existing content.
Yeah.
But if you share that information and you add a piece of insight to that information, that's thought leadership. You've created an original thought, an original way of looking at something. For example, IBM do this brilliantly. Even though they're a big company, this is something that I try and get all of our customers to do. They, every year, go out and interview 1,500 to 2,000 C-level executives in a particular function. So a couple of years ago, it was the CMO. And they interview them, they talk to them about what they do, and they gather that insight into a report and they publish it. Now, that for them doesn't have an immediate financial return, but it's thought leadership. It's giving people access to the minds of those CXOs that they wouldn't normally have access to. And I think, with the print community, they need to expand their thinking beyond the technology, but more about the application of that technology and the added value that that can make possible.
So perhaps, is there a case whereby the print company itself needs to change its structure and who it sends out to talk to people at this different level, so they're not talking price or technology specs?
Definitely. I think, the old model is the sales guy comes in and he has some samples of print. Which one do you want? Okay, this is how much it costs. We can beat so-and-so's price by 10% or whatever it is. What they need to do in order to raise their level of engagement is to bring, for example, I know a lot of printers have creative people on staff, so why not bring those in to talk to the creatives at the agency or the organisation? The MD, really, who has a more strategic approach, needs to be able to engage on that level with the senior people at the organisations that he's talking to. And I do know, quite a few printers that do that, and it works very well for them.
Having undertaken quite a bit of research for the Think Bigger report, we were talking to students, and it became quite clear that they really had no idea of application possibilities in terms of wide format, etc. Do you think that the engagement process needs to start perhaps at the educational level?
Definitely, and I've always been a firm believer that if you want to make a change, you start at the source, which for the print industry are those design students coming up through the ranks. And they do have a big focus on digital. They know obviously that wide format print exists, but they perhaps don't understand its potential, particularly in terms of the number of surfaces that can go on, the flexibility that it has, the quick turnaround time that it has now. And I think that's a big issue with the print industry. I mean, we've hired designers not too long out of college, 2 or 3 years out of college, and they really don't understand print on the fundamentals, let alone with understanding the possibilities of wide format. Because of this big drive for digital, people have lost sight of the developments that the print industry are making.
So what then should be the key takeaway for printers from this conversation?
I think printers should look at their marketing and their selling in a different way. I think that there's a massive untapped opportunity here for printers and also for agencies. And I think printers could take the initiative, get the agencies to understand the added value that's sitting there in the print industry. And just by making that effort, a lot of other things will come from that in terms of increased business, less discussions on price, etc. And I think that's really where the printers should start. Just understand and look at it from a different point of view, what I always call the outside in. Look at what you can give to them rather than what they can give to you.